Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Jennifer Anderson. Jennifer is a highly accomplished painter and printmaker whose work resonates deeply with our connection to the natural world. She's here today to inform us about her current exhibition at the Umbrella Arts Center in Concord entitled Voices of the Wild, an Ode to New England's Wildlife. An engaging body of work from drypoint and woodcut prints to watercolors and oil on paper that captures both the beauty and the vulnerability of native wildlife. During the program, we'll go on a behind the scenes tour and in the process come to better understand and appreciate Jennifer's artistry and see wildlife not only for its aesthetic attraction, but also as a vital voice in the conversation about habitat, climate change, and the responsibility we share to the living world. Let's start by meeting Jennifer and then hearing all about Voices in the Wild, an ode to New England's wildlife. Welcome, Jennifer. So delighted to be able to be here.
Thank you. Hi, nice to see you too.
I had the wonderful opportunity a couple of weeks ago to visit the Umbrella Arts Center, which is always a treat, tour your exhibition, eager to hear more about it and have
Mm.
you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you'd briefly share perhaps a little more about your background, your artistic, professional interests, please.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I actually grew up in the woods of New England. I grew up in Massachusetts on a farm, and both my parents were of the scientific ilk. They both were uh, science majors in college, and then worked in conservation a little bit. My father was a teacher. My mother became an avid bird watcher.
Mm,
And so binoculars were always at the ready, and it was just, being out in nature and bird watching was a huge part of my childhood. And in terms of the how the art kind of wove into that is like I don't remember not making art.
mm,
I think I was one of the ones in kindergarten when you say what you want to be when you grow up. I drew a picture of me as an artist.
wow.
And so it was just, oh, it's always been a part of me making. And I've had a lot of influences in my young years. Both my grandmothers were artists and very artistic. And then I also had the fortune to be, for one of our dear family friends, to be a naturalist and an artist, an
Mm.
accomplished published artist. And he and I became pen pals when I was very young age, where we would write letters and draw pictures of birds back and forth. So there's a lot of history there in my childhood that just stayed with me kind of forever and really kind of grew and morphed into its own into it in its own way into who I became as an artist and someone who conservation has always been at the forefront of my life, my world, and connecting with the natural world, and also really appreciating when others connect to the natural world either through my art or even not through my art. So, yeah.
That's fabulous how you've taken your initial interest and continued the passion and kept going, and the contributions you're making today are just outstanding. What first
Thank you.
inspired you to create Voices of the Wild?
Well, I've been in California, so I'm a displaced New Englander, as I just said. We actually we're living and working in Vermont, raising our family in Vermont, my husband and I, and he took a liaison position out here in California for temporary, for one to 2 years, and that was 17 years ago. And in that 17 years, raising the kids and them all launching, I was able to really focus back in on my art career. And I've had a lot of shows and a lot of gallery happenings here on the West Coast.
Mhm.
And I have felt for several years that I really wanted to come back, come back to New England to share my art where it all
Mhm.
was where really the roots are. My roots in my love of the natural world and my roots in art making all come from Massachusetts and surrounding New England states or area, and all the people there. I'm still in contact with a lot of people
Mm.
in the region, and I wanted to be able to share my work and what I do back home, like have a homecoming. And so I was looking at like how would I do that? What does that look like? And started searching for places. I had the really great luck of connecting with a high school friend who actually did like tons of research for me, and she found the umbrella. And
Ah.
she's like, I think you would be a good fit here. And there was an open call application, and so I'm always figuring out how to do the thematic components, like to tie everything together.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, how will my work out here fit back in New England now? So it was actually really important to create a body of work that really spoke to the at the time when I did the application, it was animals and birds. It really morphed into mostly birds.
Mm.
Uh, what birds are so important that are loved in New England? How can I speak to the threats that they have, or make there's the awareness of, oh, hey, the kestrel is declining in numbers, and so like what the birds I chose to depict, all there's an environmental concern or note about all of them. And so that's really how Voices of the Wild, that's how the concept of the show developed. And then as I'm developing a show imagery, I'm also writing about it and writing my thoughts and feelings about it. And so much of it for me in any show I do or in any work I do is the connection, like hoping that people will connect to my work, because if they connect to the work, then there's an awareness of the natural world, and maybe a deeper connection, and then maybe calls to action, which I think is super important in this day and age.
Oh, most definitely. No, it's a wonderful combination of sort of a call for advocacy for wildlife conversation and then
Mm-hmm.
celebrating nature's beauty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just fabulous in the exhibition. And we're fortunate to have some wonderful images of your work. And
Mm-hmm.
as we start, uh, first with some watercolors,
Mm-hmm.
fabulous great horned owl here. Maybe for this one, could you share a little bit more about your process? Like from
Sure.
roughly from beginning to end, how do you go about first thinking of doing
Mm-hmm.
something like the owl and then the different steps and stages you go through to get to this
Get to this
fabulous
point.
final product?
Yeah. So uh, a lot of what a lot of my subject matter, primarily I've had an encounter with, or a viewing, like bird watching or encounters, or there's something very meaningful about each of the species that I select to depict. So not only about the environmental and conservation component, like, okay, these birds need to be protected, or this is what's happening in their world right now, but also there's typically a very uh, deep meaning for me that goes beyond that conservation thing. And
Mhm.
so for the great horned owl in particular, well, number one, they're just an iconic image, right, for
Yeah.
the owl
Oh.
world and for the raptor world, and they're so powerful, and I feel like so many people get to and have encounters with them or see them or hear them, and it's a very classic kind of idea of what an owl is. When people think of owl, this is often what is visualized.
Mhm.
For me, and we've had a lot of encounters with the great horned owls in New England and out here in California. So I have a deep connection in that regard. Like, it's just always so magical when you see them. It's
Yeah.
it's breathtaking in a way. We have a pair that visits the trees near our house here,
Mm.
and we've had a couple of encounters in the early evening hours where they're both up in the tree, kind of doing their little call and response and dance, and it's such a
Fabulous.
magical thing to experience. So that typically is a lot of the reason why I choose like something like that is the species. In terms of the development of the imagery and the technique, I do a lot of drawing in my sketchbooks,
Mm,
and so that, and I collect photographs, I collect videos, I so there's a lot of reference material, and I'm really pulled towards to trying to really connect to expression in within, in the eyes in particular, which is so important because that's where our eyes automatically go.
mhm,
And so I'm very aware of that as I'm like selecting reference material and thinking about poses and thinking about, a message or just an intention, like making the artwork very intentionally to for connection. And so the drawings help with that, all the sketches and the drawings and the sketchbook work. And then I typically just I'll look at a bunch of images I have and think, okay, that needs to be on this size paper. It's a
mm,
very, I don't want to say fluid process, but it's a process that's very much like a lot of the materials dictated, the size of the paper, or just the image itself. I think, okay, I want that one to be really big, or I need to do something small and intimate, or like it just sometimes it just it to sound kind of tacky, it speaks to me, and
yeah.
and so I'll just start in, and I draw with pencil first in terms of
Mm,
process. I'll sketch in the the composition, and then I work with a lot of light washes and start bringing in detail. I love kind of washing over the whole thing to kind of get things a little bit blurry and smeary so there's an atmosphere feel to it or a mood that's created, and then going back in and really highlighting or darkening and popping out certain features. I work on a real heavyweight a watercolor paper. It's made in France,
mm,
and it's almost like cardboard, but it takes water media. It takes like it's able to take a lot of water, so I
mm,
can do lots and lots of layers, um, and I use professional grade watercolor paints and a variety of brushes. They're all highly pigmented watercolor paints, so they're light fast. It's called, so they don't fade. Um, yeah, so and a lot of times I'll work on it and I have to let it sit and dry because it'll get too muddy if I, keep going. And then I can kind of come back to it with fresh eyes over the next day or two, and that's when things can really pop and really evoke the emotions that I'm trying to share.
mhm. There's so much more we could speak about the owl. I just have to ask one thing. Are you sometimes surprised with your finished product from maybe what your initial thinking of what you were going to have as a painting?
Well, so paintings go through different phases, and when they're in the teenage phase, I get really like, oh, can I save this? You know? It's like this, like things won't go right, or I've ruined an eye, or I don't like it's not popping enough, or there's not enough contrast.
Mm,
So there's a struggle there, and then I'm like, okay, can I save it? Can I save it? And sometimes I'm surprised that I can bring it full
mm,
circle to what my vision was. And sometimes I'm surprised with the other things that happen that I didn't intend to happen. Like watercolor can be very unpredictable. And so there's that component that will surprise me. I'm like, oh, look what happened there. I love that. Or, oh, I don't like that. And I've got to figure out how to modify.
mm. Oh, just fascinating to hear about your process and the thinking you're going through. For the sake of time, we're going to move on and
Yeah.
just have a very quick word, maybe the inspiration of these next several paintings. Here we have Raven, which I think is titled Along the Way.
Yeah, yeah. So ravens and crows and all the corvids actually kind of I have a long history with them because when I was just starting out as a professional artist, I had little kids, and so uh, my art episodes or they were very short, or amongst the children, and so I stuck with the same subject matter for a very long time, which happened to be ravens and crows and corvids, and that
Mm,
had to do with the fact that I was most primarily actually pretty much only a printmaker, and in printmaking I was using a lot of black ink, and the black ink really kind of matches when you're working with crows and ravens. So actually the name of my
mm,
my studio became Raven Press Art, and I just stuck with that subject matter. So it's iconic for me in that it's been a subject matter that has been with me from the very beginning. I've drawn ravens and crows, probably thousands of times in
Wow.
printmaking, in oil paintings, in watercolors, in my sketchbooks. And when I was really kind of really diving into them in the early years, I was very interested in their natural history and in their behaviors. And what really resonated with me is they're very family centric. They're very committed in terms of relationships within their family. The offspring from one year often stay on to help raise the offspring for the next year. They're maybe very community focused. And that was a lot of what I was experiencing as a young mother too. And
Mm-mm.
so it really resonated with me. So in terms of, they're just a subject matter that I always have to have one in a show, no matter what my show is. They're always
Fabulous.
there.
Well, definitely glad you included
Yeah.
this one in the current exhibition. We're going to just take a brief look at these next few because we definitely want to hear about the other medium that we're
Oh, okay. Yep.
featuring, and that's printmaking. So this exquisite cardinal
Oh,
is fabulous to see.
thank you. Cardinals, yeah, cardinals are another evergreen, I think. And especially for, I mean, they're not out here on the West Coast, so it's really special for me to do cardinals for the East Coast. Uh, they they're that bird that when people have so many, and myself included, there's so much symbolism in seeing a cardinal, and it could mean a variety of things. Prime, and I think one of the strongest ones is that it's a visitor from who has passed on, and so there's um, a lot of connection that people have when I'm with the cardinal, and so for me it's super important to really capture that gentle look, that present look of that, in their eyes. They're actually
Mm,
very difficult to paint. The reds are very difficult to capture. When you try to paint and draw a cardinal, they end up looking pretty ugly oftentimes. So my
mm.
challenge with them is how can I super over like, supersede that and bring out the beauty that we see.
Wonderful. Well, you've definitely accomplished that. We're just going to be able to enjoy for a brief time the great blue heron
Yeah,
and then end watercolors with Peregrine for just a moment and maybe
sure.
use this as a jumping off point to contrast your watercolor painting with your dry point print making.
Mhm.
And if you could speak to that process as we see Peregrine here, how you
Yeah.
go about creating this type of image through your printmaking. Fascinating process to hear
It is a
about.
fascinating process, and it might be too long to try to describe the whole thing. So in real quick, I'll try to abridged version. Printmaking is when you have a matrix, and the image is created on this matrix, a plate, a block, and then ink is applied, and then paper is placed on it, goes through a press, and the ink from the matrix is transferred to the paper. So that's a real short version of printmaking in general. This type of printmaking process is called dry point printmaking, which is similar to etching. In dry points, I'm drawing and scratching that whole image right onto a metal or a plastic plate with any materials that will make marks. So it's very laborious because you have to scratch and dig really hard. There's no etching medium to etch away the material for you. It's all drawn directly scratched. I use etching needles, I use sandpaper, I use gouges, all kinds of things to make a mark. And all those scratches are very receptive to ink. So the harder I scratch, the darker and richer that part of the imagery will be because the more ink will adhere to it. So think of it as heavy texture, and the
Mm,
ink just like you're rubbing it into that heavy texture and it grabs to it. And so these are typically done from lots of drawings and paintings I've already done, and I just see them like, oh, that needs to be a dry point. And so I'll get my plate, and I'll just start drawing. And like I said, it's very laborious. It takes many, many hours to develop a
mm,
plate like this to get it where you have high contrast, where the drawing is correct. And what I love also, it's because it's so direct mark making, I can get very expressive in my, it's very much how I draw with charcoal or draw with pen and
Mm.
ink, where I get to be expressive and loose and all that, that it lends itself to that very much. And
What appeals to you working in this type medium?
the result, well, I love the feeling of there's almost a feeling of antiquity with these, and I think it's a lot
Mm.
to do with the paper that I use and the black inks. I love printmaking, but it's a process that there are so many steps. It's not like you're painting directly and you get your painting. It's like the concept has to be there, the drawing has to be there, and then you're scratching the plate, and then you're hoping that you've accomplished what you want in the plate, because then you have to ink it, and the inking process is a whole nother, it's a whole nother entity, and then you're printing it. And so I think like each process is very tactile in printmaking, and that definitely appeals to me, and it appeals to that tactile side, and very technical.
Mhm.
There's a lot of technical components to this, and so that's another thing that, it's really fun to have the technical skill. It's very satisfying, gratifying to have that technical skill to kind of to pull these off. And they don't aren't always successful because you don't know what you're going to get with printmaking. In printmaking, the process itself does things that you don't know are going to happen. And so not
Mm.
every plate is a successful end
Aha.
result.
And I know as one of the extensions of the programming related to the exhibition, you provided a
I
workshop
did.
on this technique at the Umbrella Art Center. Um, what was featured there?
Oh, I have a little 3D printed etching press.
Mm.
I would have taken it out if I didn't think to have it out. And so I brought that with me. I traveled with that, and I had 10 participants, and everyone worked on. I showed the process, and we talked about some of the prints pieces in the show, and like really focused on process, not on content. I asked
Hmm.
them to bring a drawing or a photograph to work from, so that that part wasn't part of, like, it really was about learning the process of printmaking and getting your image, like what you're thinking of, to a final print. And so everyone worked on a small piece of plexiglass with scratching tools. And then everyone got to use the process of shinkale, which was adding an extra piece of Japanese paper to it, which gives it tone. And it was very successful. I mean, it was really fun to see what people did. Every print was really, really like beautiful. Like, and it was,
Mm.
what's really great is that you have 10 people all learning the same thing in a very short period of time. We only had 3 hours, but everyone came up with had an original piece of artwork to take
Oh,
home.
fabulous,
And each
fabulous.
artwork was so, the variation in style and subject matter, it was really exciting. And it's always fun to see that kind of aha moment, when you
Most
pull a print for the first time.
Oh, most definitely. In the few minutes we have left, just want to hear about your work beyond birds, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
with these hares here.
Yeah. So again, it's very similar to the birds, where there's usually an encounter of some sort that inspires me out in nature. And these are actually little cottontail rabbits. We have a similar species to them out here. They're called marsh rabbits, but we see them often. I mean, in New England, they're all over, right? And I think people
Mhm.
probably get
Right.
frustrated with them,
Yeah.
but they are part of the ecosystems, and they are part of, seeing nature, and it still is exciting despite the fact that they can ruin a garden overnight. um, but the movement of this, it's two rabbits, two small little hares, and the movement was really important to me. Kind of the juxtaposition or the overlapping of them was important, because that's kind of how you see them. They're fast, and then they
Hmm.
sit still.
Yeah.
And here in California, we'll watch them kind of play with each other if we catch it just right. And it's like this little, cat and mouse game that they have, and in the bushes, and then they're gone.
That's
And
great.
I find them just adorable. And yeah, this piece, it just speaks to that love of seeing them, I think.
Most definitely. And the last one we want to share,
Fox.
Fox here. What was the inspiration for this one?
Yeah. So we actually held on to our home in Vermont when we left New England, and we still have that home. And right now we're able to go back occasionally. Back, we kind of have one foot on the East Coast as
Mhm.
we're waiting for retirement on this side of the world. Uh, and every summer in Vermont, we live in a tiny little village. We have a 2 acre spot and it's very rural.
Mm.
And we have fox every year that come through the yard and come through the garden. I have a really wonderful wildflower garden there. But this year we had gray fox have a litter underneath our front porch, and I got to see the baby, the kits,
Ah.
and the mother and the father. And so we had a time span several weeks throughout of this summer that they were very present. And it was like we would just kind of go out and sit quietly in the evenings or in the early morning and wait to see them. And they're a very special, mystical, another, like with the owl, another very special kind of mystical creature for me. And a lot of times it's not just the conservation and the natural world, but also I do a lot of research and reading about the folklore and the
Mm.
symbolism behind seeing animals, and the different stories from all the different cultures throughout the world. And the fox is prominent in so many. The fox and the owl and the ravens actually are prominent across so many different cultural folklore and mythical tales that it just adds a little bit more to what I do.
Wonderful, wonderful. In closing, what do you hope visitors take with them
Mm.
after touring the exhibition?
Yeah. I hope that people connect to the work, that they find their own story or connect their own stories to some of the pieces, that they find meaning, that not find meaning, but can attach their own meaning to the pieces. I'm very careful about how I select titles and words and phrases to kind of help inspire that connection, and to also really convey my connection to those. A sense of peace for sure. Like I want people to kind of like feel the beauty and feel a sense of peace and a respite from the busy world, because we need that so much. And a reminder to like take the time and go out and notice nature
Mm.
and take care of nature. I think it's a gentle reminder that way as well. Um, and that's something that I think when I'm at my shows and I have people seeing it for the first time and responding, that's a common theme that happens for sure. I get the stories and I hear the connections and they share with me. And to me, that's just amazing. So even if I'm not there, I hope people are still walking away with that.
Nice, nice. And those final sentiments go so well with the other exhibition on view,
Mm,
aptly entitled Joy
joy.
and Peace.
Right, right. Oh yeah,
Um,
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Jennifer, in closing, for viewers and others who want to keep up with your work, find out more, possibly get in touch, what are some good contact references?
Well, I'm on Instagram, and that's primarily the best place to kind of find me, but it's under Raven Press Art. Uh, so Instagram's a great place. I'm in a gallery here in Carmel, California, called the
Mm.
Carmel Art Association. That's a great way to connect. I'm in a gallery in Tennessee for anyone who's in Tennessee, a Copper Fox Gallery, and of course through the umbrella. Right now, there's available. People are, I think there, I keep on getting people adding to my mailing list. So I'm
Mm.
pretty sure there's a QR code up right now that directs people to my website. Raven Press Art is my website, and there's contact info on there. So yeah, and sign up
Terrific.
for my mailing list for sure, because I send out thoughtful. I don't spam people. I like send out thoughtful kind of contemplations on my art and on connecting to nature and stories, along with like art happenings. Like, okay, like, hey, in 2 weeks I'll be doing this and I'll be in your area, or I have this big solo show at the gallery here in California. And so it's informational that way, but also a lot of storytelling and connecting.
Terrific, terrific. Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap up now. I want to thank you again for taking the time to be here,
Yeah, of course.
for sharing the fabulous exhibition, which will
Well,
be
thank
on
you.
display until November 16th. And just want to wish you continue success with future endeavors.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Jay. It was nice talking with you.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.